Speedweek is brought to you by BF Goodrich TA High-Tech Radios. We make cars perform.
Hi everyone, I'm Bob Jenkins. Welcome to Speedweek.
And I'm Larry Newber. Well, this week we have reports from all over the U.S., from Minnesota to San Diego, as we continue to cover the world of motorsports.
Well, Larry has just returned from Minnesota, where, believe it or not, there is car racing out of doors in the wintertime.
First of all, it's very, very cold. But what's a guy or a gal to do if he or she runs race cars and it's cold in the north and you live there? Ice racing, but of course, and one of the most famous is on Lake Phelan in St. Paul, Minnesota. This isn't a game. It's serious racing. Regional racers and well-known drivers. Hey, Geoff Brabham, why did you recklessly leave warm Southern California for this?
Why? You ask difficult questions. I don't know. Herm Johnson, he does a lot of racing here, and he kind of suggested to me at Indy that, why don't you come up and do an ice race? And I thought, oh, you got to be crazy. But he kind of struck an inquisitive chord, I think, somewhere. And I wasn't doing anything this weekend, so I said, hell, why not? And I really thoroughly enjoyed it.
Almost 60 cars qualified for this one, a 2-mile road course, biggest on the Frozen Lake Winter Trail.
The secret is staying warm. It's a pretty nice day today, but normally if you can stay warm, you're happier at the end. If you for 3 hours, if you stay on the track, you got to be there at the end to win. So you got to stay on the track for 3 hours.
The red 44 Turbo Colt, brought by the racing stockbroker Jerry Hansen, his co-driver Trans Am John Jones, easily builds a substantial early lead. Now this relates closely to street stock racing. Wipers, defrosters mandatory, and the number of studs and tires restricted. Early on, Bill Collins Jr., who last year won, is a threat, but 3 drivers means 2 stops, and most will go it with 2. The bright yellow 20 Saab, co-driven by locals Joe Hauser and Mike Royce, surprises many, and the other Joneses, Tom Jr. and Sr., they're also slick. Well, you slide a lot on ice, and one snowbank looks like all the others. It may not be Indy, but these turn markers sure help. The Arctic Archers, Tommy and Bobby that is, riding the Renault Fuego are prominent as always. And there even was an ESPN entry. Dick Kentrude and his Pyrotech safety company supplied the ride. But unfortunately, our gearbox didn't stick it out for 3 hours, keeping our best driver, Ron Verhagen, from completing his anchor leg. Herm Johnson with Indy owner John Menard and Geoff Brabham with Rick Horwine finished in the top 10. After surprisingly little attrition, Jerry Hansen ground his spikes past the checkered flag first.
Well, Larry, you were one of the drivers on that ESPN entry. How'd you do?
Well, I probably was about the 5th best on a 3-driver team. But I got to tell you, it was fascinating, but most of all, humbling.
I'll bet. Well, the LaCrosse Interstate Speedway in West Salem, Wisconsin is a 5/8-mile asphalt track normally used for auto racing, but last weekend it was invaded by the snowmobiles. And over 10,000 came to watch. The weather, a relatively mild 25 degrees under sunny skies. 6 machines start the feature, and it isn't long before they're at over 100 miles an hour on the long and wide straightaways. Last week's winner of the World Championship, Michelle Gingras, fails to make the final 6 this weekend. The leader is the guy from the sweet-sounding town of Honey Harbor, Quebec, Gary Vasser on sled 15. His machine is a newer type Skidoo that utilizes 2 7.5-inch tracks instead of one 15-inch system. It's an easy win for Vasser and a lion's share of a $17,500 purse. Second was Dave Wall. Franz Rosenquist was 3rd, Darcy Ewing 4th. 5th was Dan Carmichael, and Alan Decker was 6th.
Another chapter in the continuing story of the financial troubles of Werner Hodgdon and how they might affect the world of auto racing was written Tuesday. Bob Bell reports from Nashville.
It's very complicated, but the bottom line is the ownership of the Nashville Raceway is still up for grabs, and the future of auto racing in Nashville is still very much in doubt. Lease owner Werner Hodgdon of California has filed for bankruptcy. He can't pay the rent. His former partner, Nashville businessman Gary Baker, has made the $102,000 rent payment and today took control of the track assets.
It was done because it was a situation of no choice. Had that move not been done yesterday or within a time period, say, of 2 or 3 days, it was a matter of curtains as far as racing at Nashville International Raceway is concerned.
Now what happens? Are you going to sell those assets, or are you going to assume the ownership? What happens now?
Obviously, the objective now is to just quietly proceed with foreclosure sale of all the assets. And hopefully, yes, because of my prior arrangements with NASCAR and all that, end up with a sanction agreement and with a race facility upon which to run the races covered by that sanction agreement. That does involve some legal steps in the interim. And I might add, it also involves the possibility of Warner still making some moves in this big chess game on the front straightaway that could block that move.
Reporting in Nashville, this is Bob Bell for ESPN Speedweek.
Coming up next, Rich Vogler's Volkswagen is victorious again, indoors.
E.F. Goodrich, TA High-Tech Radios. Update for enthusiasts. Subject, racing. If you want to watch race cars perform, watch those with TA High-Tech Radios in racing competition. Like the Porsche Carrera Turbo. It made history when it became the only car that ever won at Le Mans with street tires. Come, TA Radios, beating every car in its class, even though they had pure racing slicks. And trucks perform better with the Radial Mud Terrain TA. Last year, this tire took more wins in more classes, more than any other tire. Proof B.F. Goodrich is still #1. Race-proven technology is also behind our revolutionary new speed-rated tire, the Radial TA60H. Remember, the tires you drive are the tires we race. B.F. Goodrich TA High-Tech Radios. We make cars, even race cars, perform.
You know, the business world moves fast. I've found only one publication keeps pace with it every business day. Only this. The Wall Street Journal. Not weekly, not bi-weekly. Today's business news today. So you can use it today.
Get the next 6 months of the Wall Street Journal delivered for just $56, only 44 cents a day. To order, phone 800-372-3000. That's 6 months over 125 issues for just $56. Phone 800-372-3000 today.
The United States Auto Club ended its indoor racing season last Sunday at Fort Wayne, Indiana. A regular program topped off with a 100-lap feature called the Little Hoosier 100. It didn't take long for the mechanical croquet to start. This is the first race, the Concy. Chuck Kreider causes a 5-car traffic jam. More action in the second heat. Alan Brown, number 5, is off to a flying start, up and over Mike Fedorchak. The first 2 in this semi move to the feature. Some are trying too hard. Look at the mess. 97 is Fedorchak. 15 is Rich Corson. Number 43, Sherm Armstrong, has nowhere to go. David Potter passes Ken Hopkins with the help of a slowed Rick Burdine, and both move to the 100-lapper. It's a memorable day for Mel Kenyon. It's his 813th USAC feature start, from the pole no less. A total of 12 cars. Here we go. No, here we don't go. Cars are everywhere. 7 of the 12 are involved. Only one, Eric Moore, can't continue, but Alan Brown's suspension is a little askew. It's a much better start this time. Kenyon is leading, but look at the positions change here. Number 16, Barry Reed, goes high and loses 3rd to number 11, Jim Hines, and 4th to 1S, Rich Vogler. Rich has been outstanding indoors this year. He's now 3rd and pressuring John Andretti for 2nd. He does it. Then on lap number 42, passes Kenyon for the lead. Andretti, who has moved up to 2nd, is out after trying to lap David Potter. Kenyon, Hines, and Reed are in a good battle for 2nd, but Hines is a little too over-anxious. And Barry Reed, despite obvious neck fatigue, finishes 3rd. The lap-and-a-half win for Vogler was his 4th in a row indoors. Any problems today, Rich?
Our first session of hot laps, my wife had me at 790, so I felt confident that my day was going to go as well as it did. Earlier in the day, after hot laps, we broke a set of quick change gears, and we had to replace that, but no problem there. We put the new ones in, and everything held up, and we ran the whole 100 laps, and of course we won the race.
After Vogler in the feature, Mel Kenyon 2nd, Barry Reed finished 3rd, 4th was Jim Hines, and Ken Hopkins finished 5th.
Some had made the overnight haul from an arena in Dayton, Ohio. Here's a report from Tom Michaels in the Gem City. Dayton's Hara Arena is often host to ice hockey and auto shows, but this weekend, racing machines of all descriptions skated around the small indoor oval. The centerpiece of the weekend was supposed to be the Saturday night Outlaw Midget Nationals, but there were a few problems, not the least of which they could not get the cars started on the short, slick straights. The heats were scrapped. Starting positions for the 100-lap main event were drawn for. A field of 9 took the green. Barry Reed in number 16, the early leader. Steve Cannon took first when Reed was caught in this fourth-turn pileup. Also involved the yellow number 79 of Eric Moore. That will come into play later. As Cannon pulls out to a sizable advantage, the rest of the field lines up like a freight train behind Bev Griffiths in her first indoor race. Just past lap 80, the freight train derails. Every car but Eric Moore is involved in turn 2. The red flag comes out. The race resumes, and when the checkered flag falls, Eric Moore is the winner. Or is he? 90 minutes after the race, Steve Cannon is declared the victor. Moore had lost 7 laps in that pileup early in the race. The rules of the night said yellow flag laps would count. Thus Moore wound up 4th, credited with just 93 laps. Tom Hayworth was 2nd, the only one other than Cannon to finish 100 laps. Barry Reed was 3rd. From Dayton, this is Tom Michaels reporting for ESPN's Speedweek.
And midgets of a smaller caliber also ran last weekend, the TQs on the 7th Mile Oval in Niagara Falls, New York. Here are the lucky 16 who have made the 35-lap feature. Now, sometimes things don't go right even when you're being pushed off. Ask John Shurtleff. Pole sitter Dick Peterman in the yellow number 98 is the early leader. That's Dick Mahoney 2nd, and former Indy and now super modified driver Bentley Warren in number 9 running 3rd. It's an up-and-down day for Bentley. He moves to 2nd, but later falls back to 5th. On the last lap, after Peterman wins, 3rd place Billy Colton and 4th place Lou Ciccone tangle, moving Bentley back up to 3rd behind Mahoney.
Well, there's good news about an injured former IndyCar champ, and the new champion, well, he has a new car.
And although it's a new car, it will look very familiar. Those stories coming up.
Feel yourself becoming a shuffler every time you try to find your favorite TV program? Has cable turned you into a zapper? Or have you ended up a flipper? You just might be developing the symptoms of flip-itis. Relax, there's a cure. TV Host, one easy-to-read source for all your cable programming. TV Host available from your cable system. The #1 cure for flip-itis.
Accident in Canada last September. He's still walking on crutches, but completed several laps at Phoenix, hitting a top speed of over 151 miles an hour. Howdy Holmes says he's signed a contract to drive for the Forsyth brothers this year. It looks like it will be a one-driver team with 2 Lolas and Cosworth power early, but maybe a Buick engine later. And Pancho Carter has signed a contract to drive for Rick Gallis. Testing scheduled to begin next Monday in Phoenix. Buick may also be involved in that effort.
Well, what everyone knew was officially announced earlier this week in Chicago.
Racing is one of only 2 truly international sports. Interest in motorsports goes across all borders and all languages. And auto racing is the only major sport where a corporate sponsor can actually participate on the field of competition.
Mario, of course, was on hand with his dedication to the cause.
My effort is going to be undivided toward this particular program because it's so intense in every aspect that certainly won't leave too much time for me to go fishing. So, as I said, it's 110% right here where I am.
The entourage flew across the Atlantic after this for the Formula One half of the announcement. Alan Jones will drive, and we'll have a report next week.
The Carl Haas team was very successful last year with 6 victories. Several other IndyCar teams would like to have just 1 win. Among them, an operation owned by Buffalo beer distributor Dick Hammond. Hammond's involvement in racing goes back many years and includes many types of cars. He owned the offset sprint car that Tom Bigelow held the half-mile world's record with at one time. The chief mechanic on the team is Galen Fox, whose credentials include the 1980 James McElreath Award for being chief mechanic on the champion sprint car and the 1981 USAC Chief Mechanic Rookie of the Year. The team's driver is Steve Chassey, who's excited about a new March that will be especially built for a Chevy engine.
I think the new car is going to make our whole season much easier. Instead of trying to work with an obsolete car with no current information, we'll have a state-of-the-art car that's designed specifically for our Chevrolet, and we'll have all the latest input from the March factory people for each racetrack to help us. Instead of going around blind and trying to find our own way all year long, at least we'll have the opportunity to use their information.
Using a Chevy instead of a Cosworth saves the team several $1,000s a year. Chassey's experience goes back to the sprints and midgets in California, but was once an employee of Disneyland. Ever think you'd make it big in IndyCar racing?
Yeah, I did. I never knew exactly how it would happen, but that was, I think, a dream that I had, that everyone has, and I had enough success that I thought I could come back here and run with the USAC cars. And of course it took me a few years to get going with the USAC cars, but that's the main reason I'm here. I came back here to run Indianapolis and run the Indianapolis cars.
Chassey is hopeful that the new March Chevy combination will equal or better his best season, which was in 1983.
We know how much you love sports. So what would it take to get you to pick up the phone and order Sports Illustrated? A free trip to the World Series? Sorry. How about a discount when you subscribe? Say 10% off, 25, 35%? How about almost 50% off the cover price? That's a savings of nearly $1 on every issue. And you'll fast break into basketball right through the NBA playoffs. Plus coverage of hockey, baseball, and football. No one captures the spirit of the game better than Sports Illustrated. So why aren't you dialing? All right. What if we also include Sports Illustrated's 1985 baseball preview issue with profiles, feature stories, and predictions for every division, every team? More? How about our famous swimsuit issue that covers one of the most exciting spectator sports under the sun? Not enough? Well, are you a baseball fan? We'll take you from spring training to the heat of the pennant races. More? Okay, we'll even give you this free 1985 baseball schedule for every major league team. So, how about a final bonus? This exclusive Sports Illustrated AM/FM sound set. It's your personal hi-fi complete with headphones. So why aren't you pressing those pretty little buttons? Oh, the phone number. It's 1-800-221-3200. 30 issues of Sports Illustrated for 3 easy monthly installments of just $9.89. That's almost half off the cover price, including the baseball preview and the swimsuit issue, plus this 1985 baseball schedule and AM/FM personal hi-fi free with your paid subscription. So now what?
I can't see the phone number.
It's 1-800-221-3200. Call now.
The AMA-sanctioned Outdoor Supercross Series got a big jump on many of the other series when it officially opened last week in San Diego's Jack Murphy Stadium.
The format is a little different this year. There are 2 finals, but the second one carries the most weight. Evidence the new system works, the overall winner here never carried the checkered flag, but racked up the most points. That's Jeff Ward, Kawasaki number 2, who leads all of Moto 1. Well, almost all. He fell on the stutter bumps just before the final turn, and Yamaha's Brock Glover smiled by. Plate 39, El Cajon Scott Burnworth, opened a lot of eyes when he leaped to the vanguard in Moto 2. Again, Glover chases until lap 6, halfway, and then Brock pogoed by. The San Diego crowd is seeing as much of Brock in the air as a Dan Fouts football. Names of the course features are big in this sport. Skull Bandit's start line, Toyota truck triples, Warehouse Wild Ride, and Nippon Denso Sand Trap. Rick Johnson, Glover's neighbor back home, is suddenly on the scene. Lots of pressure, and then into the lead. Glover, incidentally, also later lost it. Johnson wins Heat 2, and the new Nevadian O'Mara must have figured he had it overall as he jumped no hands at the checkered. The Hondas have debuted with a secret weapon called the Magic Box, apparently a sensing device, and so far, it must work. 2 seconds, good for the win.
In this beautiful setting near Corona, California, near where the new Riverside Raceway is scheduled to be built, there were those still a little too young to ride the motorized machines, and there were those who were pioneers in the sport of motocross. A reunion of former owners and drivers of CZs and other bikes from years gone by. Bertus de Jong says the technology has changed greatly since he was a regular.
There was much more muscle power involved, manpower than the technology on the motorcycle was not there what we have now these days. The speed was not that high, and the motorcycles were just coming out the classes actually for motocross. There was not such a thing as high-tech motocross like we have right now.
The placement of shocks seems to be one of the major advancements. Notice how the placement on this vintage machine permits only a few inches of wheel travel. But on the other hand, a few things will always stay the same. There will always be bruises and scrapes, and baling wire will always be called upon when all else fails. 4 more drivers have been chosen for this year's IROC series. They are Tom Sneva, Harry Gant, John Watson, and Jochen Maas. Don Garlits escaped serious injury last Sunday when his top fuel dragster flipped 3 times at Firebird International Raceway near Phoenix. He had just completed his quickest run ever, over 260 miles an hour, when the rear wing collapsed. He and the car are expected to be ready for this weekend's season opener in Pomona, California. Last year's AMA Camel Pro champion Ricky Graham is also recuperating from injury suffered in an accident in Central California. His bike, and one driven by a friend, struck a truck on a single-lane dirt road. Graham was unable to walk for a couple of days and is still unable to ride, but is expected to be ready for the Camel Pro Series. And Team Honda says it will not run the road courses, only the dirt in the Camel Pro Series this year. So rider Bubba Schobert, who won a Formula One race last year at Mid-Ohio, will be competing in superbikes this year in order to avoid violating his contract.
The Copper World Classic, one of the biggest racing weekends of the year in the Southwest, scheduled for this weekend, has been postponed. The Salt River Project floodgates had to be opened because of heavy mountain snow and rain, causing 115th Avenue to flood and Phoenix International Raceway to become inaccessible. The Copper Classic features stock cars, sprints, midgets, and was to have been the opening event in the USAC National Supermodified Series. The events are now scheduled for the weekend of February 22nd.
Here's this week's trivia question. Among the following NASCAR drivers, who competed most recently in an Indianapolis 500? A. Cale Yarborough, B. Leroy Yarborough, C. Donnie Allison, D. Bobby Allison, or E. Bobby Johns? We'll have the answer in a moment.
Sunday, NFL Films shows you the game's greatest coach. He demanded perfection from the Packers, but expected nothing from them he wouldn't do himself. And when he told them to perform, they performed like no other team in history. The legacy of Lombardi lives on Sunday.
Tomorrow, ESPN brings you a Big East barn burner. Villanova travels to Syracuse for a clash in the Carrier Dome. Live tomorrow.
B.F. Goodrich TA High-Tech Radials. Update. For enthusiasts. Subject, truck performance. Traction. That's what trucks get with the rugged radial mud-terrain TA. Durability. On-road and off. With the radial all-terrain TA. Last season, B.F. Goodrich took more off-road wins. In more classes. More than any other tire company. B.F. Goodrich TA High-Tech Radials. We make trucks and cars perform.
Here's the answer to this week's trivia question. Cale last ran at Indy in 1972, Leroy in 70, Donnie in 71, and Bobby Johns in 69. The answer is D, Bobby Allison, who last competed in 1975.
Go-kart racing used to be thought of kid stuff, but tain't so anymore. If you're a driver and your race is up next, you concentrate on the job ahead. If your race is a few minutes away, maybe you grab a racetrack steak and a Coke. Once out there on the track, like the one here in Springfield, Illinois, spins usually aren't serious. You might get stuck in a bale of hay, or maybe just spin and drive away. But things can get serious. Miraculously, this driver walked away after only a few minutes. There were 4 different classes that competed here in Springfield, and the feature winners were 2-cycle light Dick Taylor, 2-cycle heavy Mark Coates, 4-cycle light Jason Engel, 4-cycle heavy Doug Doherty, and 100cc piston Brad Venberg Jr.
Larry, that flip was about as nasty a flip as I've seen in a go-kart in a while.
Sure was. Driver's name, by the way, was Ken Woolridge from Champaign, Illinois, and like the local college basketball team, he's okay, thank you.
Well, the 24 Hours of Daytona IMSA race headline the weekend's racing activity coming up. We'll have a report next week on Speedweek. I'm Bob Jenkins.
And I'm Larry Newber. We'll see you next week.
Speedweek has been brought to you by BF Goodrich TA High-Tech Radios. We make cars perform.